Welcome to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno.
What did three children see in the sky above New Mexico in 1945? After it crashed, what did they see inside? Was there a connection with the nearby Trinity atomic bomb test that year?
Hello, and welcome to the 905th edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno. Oh, that would probably help.
That's a train coming through the studio.
Well, no, that's not the train. That is a lovely thing called feedback.
Oh.
that we have here in the lovely world of audio. It's a great time for everybody. And oh yeah, it would probably help if they could hear us. So, welcome to the 905th edition of Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno, coming to you from WOON AM and FM radio in Woonsocket, Rhode Island, on the Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live on YouTube and via TuneIn.com. I'm Ben, and those lofty questions came from my co-host, partner in Paranormal Adventures, and Dad, Paul. And we have a couple of very lovely guests along with us, so take it away, Father.
Coming to us via Skype today is Italian-American journalist and UFO legend Paola Leopizzi Harris. Widely published in North America and Europe, Paola is an investigative reporter specializing in UFO and extraterrestrial phenomena, which she has studied since 1979. She has rubbed elbows with the likes of Dr. J. Allen Hynek and high-ranking military officers. One of these was Colonel Philip J. Corso in Roswell, New Mexico, and we've done a show on that and rebroadcast it once, too. Paola's website is paolaharris.com, P-A-O-L-A Harris.com. Also joining us via Skype is our old friend Steve Laplume, who will help us co-host today, a close associate of Paula's. Steve was a witness to the Rendlesham Forest Incident of 1980 in England while he was a U.S. Air Force security policeman.
So, Paola Harris and Steve Laplume, welcome back to Behind the Paranormal.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, it's a pleasure, especially to do this with a friend. It's always good to compare notes, and I'm very lucky because Steve read the book cover to cover.
Yeah, right, so he's more than prepared.
Very good. So we'll start with just one question, and then we'll turn it over to Steve for a while to let him ask the rest of the questions that he may have. Paula, please introduce us to the Trinity UFO crash of 1945, and then, as I say, Steve can begin with some questions.
Okay, first of all, the Trinity book came out in May. It's co-authored with Jacques Vallée. I was very, very lucky to have Jacques come on board because I was working on this case in Socorro, New Mexico for 9 years. I was working on it for 5 years. Nothing came of it. I brought everybody in the world down there. The only person that bothered to do anything was Jaime Maussan from Mexico City, who did an entire show. The 1945 case is a crash case right after the atomic bomb. But we have the witness, the location, the materials. We have everything, unlike Roswell. And so what happened is I knew how big this case was. I kept going back there. And by accident or coincidence or whatever you want to call it, 4 years ago, Jacques was into metals, looking at metals. And since we had a piece that the little boy had taken from the inside of the crash, he contacted me. And for 4 years, he and I have been going back to try to piece this case together. And then with his incredible writing skills, he put together the book Trinity, the best kept secret, that came out in May. And it's become a bestseller. It really has. The book is doing well, mostly in Europe. And this is crazy because all the interviews that Jacques and I have done have been from like Portugal, the UK, Italy, Argentina, and outside the country. Our own ufologists have not really hooked onto it like he dreamed that they would. And I am so thrilled that Steve, who's a very good friend, read it because it was a lot of hard work.
Okay, then, so we're dealing with a case in 1945, 2 years before the Roswell crash, and three children, as I understand it, because we talked about this before, saw the craft come over and then crash. Is that not correct?
Two children.
Two children. Okay.
Two.
All right. So there we have it. Well, let's turn it over to Steve. Ben, did you?
Oh, I think you're thinking there were 3 technical witnesses. So there were the 2 children, then there was the pilot that flew over the crash site and saw the 2 kids.
Or now I'm confused. Let's let Steve unconfuse me.
There are 3 kids. I found the last witness last year. It was the niece, but we could have let Steve.
Well, let's let Steve bring some order to our.
There's a lot of ins and outs.
To my thoughts. Okay.
Kids.
Go ahead, Steve.
Okay. So, right. So as Paula said, there were 2 witnesses, and if I got their ages correct, one was 9 and one was 7 at the time, correct?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. And they were out looking for a mother cow that had given birth to a calf, and they wanted to make sure the calf was safe and that they could brand it before somebody else did. There was a big thunderstorm, and so when they were hiding under an outcropping of some rocks, that's when they, sorry, I hit my table. That's when they heard this sonic boom, is that correct, from the crash?
And they thought it was the bomb again because they had lived through the real trauma of the atomic bomb on July 16th, 1945. They thought there was another bomb.
Right. And now, according to, see, that's one thing I wanted to touch on. A lot of people go, okay, there's a 9 and 7-year-old children, and obviously they have a vivid imagination. But the fact is these children had to grow up quick because it was during the war, and all of the adult males were off fighting the war, so they had no choice but to be the de facto cowboys for the ranch, correct?
Absolutely, and I was shocked when Jose told me that he was driving a truck at the age of 9 and delivering a hamburger to the Owl Bar and Cafe, and that he was riding a horse at the age of 3. So, I mean, this was the old days. You go back to the way old days, the cowboy days, and it was not modern. The children, especially if they were male children, had to really do a lot of the work.
Right. And just personally, where I'm living at right now, there's a lot of Amish, and the young Amish kids are working at a very early age as well, helping their families around the farm. So it's not unheard of for something like that to be going on. All right. So they hear the sonic boom. They see did they see the smoke and they went towards it? And then that's when they discovered the crash site?
Well, what happened is that they actually saw this thing hit the side of a tower and take out a piece of the tower. And then they saw smoke in the valley. That's where the location is. We know where the exact location is, Steve, because when I went there, you read all of this in the book, there was a circle of 30 feet, which was what the craft was, 30 feet long, and there was nothing growing in the middle. There were all little flowers around it, so the actual mark of where that thing stopped is still there. It must have caused problems with the dirt because nothing was growing there. In the following year, Steve, and you and I have talked about this, they have not wanted me to go back, and they have planted poisonous plants on that circle. They have come in with dirt and big cats and plowed it over so the circle is not visible. I mean, the location has been altered in the last 9 years.
Okay. All right. Now, when they first came upon this crash site, despite the fact that it was a horrific thunder and lightning storm and downpouring rain, they found that they couldn't even get close to the site at first because of the smoke from the fire that it started.
Yeah, I'm going to add a little things that people should know too.
Right.
Yes, the fires were on the mesquite trees, and the mesquite trees before the atomic bomb were 6 feet high. You could actually go underneath and get some shade. I've been there so many times now, and now they don't grow more than 2 feet. So those trees were all on fire. The craft itself was not. It was a controlled landing. So the craft was there, and a panel was missing.
Right. Now, when they actually observed it, they said that the panel looks like it had just basically come off the craft, and they observed what inside?
Well, they went down and they had the binoculars anyway. They had really good binoculars because they look at brands of cattle to see who's is who. And they saw little creatures. And Jose uses the word sashaying, which, in a confused jock, is sashaying back and forth. But what he meant was they weren't walking. They were floating. They were like, the three little creatures were like, and they were gray with long spindly arms, went back and forth. And they were screeching like they were in trouble or hurt.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I mean, I can't even imagine being 7 or 9 years old and seeing something like that. I'm sure. What were the overall effects when? I mean, this must have kind of blown their mind when they saw this. I mean, what were they even thinking? Because this is literally the first modern day crash site. It was 2 years before Roswell. Nobody had ever heard of a UFO really at that point, correct?
Absolutely, and I'm going to talk. I think it's important when we have a conversation that I also say, when you had your sighting, you already knew what a UFO was because you're in a culture where Kenneth Arnold already coined the term in 1947. It was in television. You could see it. You could see them. There's magazines out there. And in the military, there was also talk of UFOs when you were in England and Rendlesham. But if you're 7 years old and you never even heard the term, you have no idea, and you think it's an airplane. Okay, and you think that it's an airplane crash, except this has no wings. It's shaped like an avocado, and what you can see from the door is like nothing you ever saw. And at times, I'd say to Jose, well, what did you think? And he said they were little kids like us. And I'd say, so you weren't afraid of them? And he goes, no. He said, I wasn't afraid at all. He said, I just heard the screeching and the high-pitched noise, and I wanted to go in and help them, but Remy started to cry. Remy is 7 years old. He was scared. Well, also because their eyes were irritated. They were in a crash spot. So, so they went back home. But Jose always teases me every time I go there. He goes, Paula, if I had gone in to help them, I wouldn't be with you right now.
Yeah, that's an interesting point. I'm going to kind of throw a curveball here. You mentioned that there were three creatures and that they look like, when I was reading the book, I don't know if it was Remy or it might have been Jose, said that they looked like they had suits on or that was their skin. Now, I know that this is a controversial witness in my case, but when Larry said that he saw some creatures, he said the exact same thing. It seemed like they were floating. There were three of them, and they looked like little kids in snowsuits. So I'm not a big believer in coincidences. I just wanted your thoughts on that.
No, I don't think Larry makes up stuff like that, especially when he came into your room at the date that he came in, which is way before the public went out. Larry was telling the truth to you. You were there. It was on location with no agenda with Larry. He just came into your room and he told you that. And the thing is that I've had to think about the ETs. I've had to think about what's inside. Even, whatever floated over your head had something inside it. Mm-hmm. I've had to think about this. So, and I'm not one of those ufologists that, put everything in a box, reptilian, gray, and Nordic. I don't know what the heck it is. However, I've come to the conclusion that anything that's flying might use artificial intelligence, AI. Therefore, if they're using AI, they may be clones or cloned AI, cloned things that are programmed. And I hate using the word things because it's like disrespectful. But, in 1945, they were beings. They did have telepathic communication with the boys. They did because he tells me, did you read, I don't know where part or it is, but he had a vision of people falling out of skyscrapers, and Remy had never seen a skyscraper.
Right.
I don't know what book that is in, but that's the vision he had, and then Jose had communication with them too, but the kind of communication was psychic. It was thought transfer. It wasn't words.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so So let's move forward. So they went back, they told the parents, the sheriff, they went out and they looked at the site, and then the military got involved. Now, it's World War II. I think all the frontline troops are, they're off fighting. So the troops that actually would have responded probably weren't maybe the top-notch troops. And based off of what Jose had said in your interview, they were kind of lackadaisical, picking up stuff. They'd just leave the craft there, and they'd go to the local watering hole and get food and eat. And but then again, it's the first time there was ever a UFO crash. So it seemed like the military really didn't have a stellar response to this incident. So I was just wondering your thoughts on all that.
Well, first of all, you were in the military.
Yeah.
At that age, they were all young boys. I mean, they're young boys. They were part of the Manhattan Project, and they had never seen a UFO. Maybe they didn't even know it was a UFO. Maybe they thought it was like a prototype of some airplane. I mean, you're looking at an avocado-shaped thing with the dome, right? Yeah. So you didn't see the ET. So you just say, we're supposed to clean up this stuff, and so they had Jeeps there with the country music going, and the kids heard the country music, and they were sick and tired of having to pick up every piece. So they took their foot, they made like a berm, and just pushed with their feet the pieces in the berm there that they made with their foot. And that's been the problem all these years, because if truly they did that, there's pieces hanging out in that location. And somebody doesn't want us going digging there, obviously. And the other thing is that the Army did get there before Apodaca and Faustino, the father and the Sheriff Apodaca got there, because they couldn't find the craft at first, and it was filled with brush. They threw brush on it so that it was covered and you couldn't see it from the air. So when they did see it, on the day that the boys and Apodaca and the father went, when they did see it, now this is amazing, because there's no story like this. The father and Sheriff Apodaca go inside, and they're walking around inside. I don't even know a story like that. So the boys, they're telling the boys, you're not going to talk about this. And they went inside. They never told the boys what they saw. So we have 3 people that have been inside a craft. We have Sheriff Apodaca, and I don't get to these people soon enough, Steve, because if I had gotten to them even 25 years before that, I could have found Sheriff Apodaca, and Faustino's dead, and all I could do is go to the cemetery and put flowers on his grave, which Jacques and I did. But as I'm looking at this grave, Steve, I'm going, oh my God, this is like real people, and this really happened. And I didn't get here fast enough.
Right. Now, one thing led to another. They finally make a road. They get a lowboy in there. They put the craft on there at an angle so they could get under bridges. And then Jose decides, which was a custom back then, from what I understand, he goes in and he gets a souvenir. And he wants a souvenir because when the men go off to war, they get a memento from those men because they just might never return. So it wasn't unheard of for them to get a memento, correct?
Yeah, plus, I mean, those guys, the boys found it. I mean, it was like that's our stuff. And they watched the recovery for 7 days. And a couple of things. When the Army came to, because that property belonged to Jose's dad. He had leased it from the Bureau of Land Management. So when they came to the door, they said, look, we have to cut your gate because we have to take out a weather balloon. Well, I've been to that gate so many times. I mean, the cut on that is like, 50 feet. And so Faustino knew, he said, can't you use the cattle guard, which is 6 feet? They had picked up weather balloons while they were on horses out in those, in those 80,000 acres. So, I mean, ironically, can you believe this? Like the head of the recovery unit, who's in the military, says we are taking out a weather balloon. Yeah, a 50-ton, 500. I think Jacques said it was 50 tons. I forgot how much he measured. He did all the measuring of everything. But Faustino said, Jose in the back and said, get all the weather balloons so we can give them back to the Army. So they handed the weather balloons that they had picked up. And you know how crazy that is? They picked up balloons, they're handing them back to the Army, and the Army's saying, we got to cut your gate and create a road to take out this weather balloon.
Right. Now, the piece that they took off gets basically shoved up in an attic for a couple of decades, and then here comes Paola Harris going, what do you mean you have a piece of the craft? So can you tell me a little bit about what did you find when you did the analysis on this piece of metal?
Well, can I go backwards a little bit?
Sure, yeah.
Two boys did something they shouldn't have done. That's why they're quiet for 60 years. They stole something. Well, I'm not going to use the word stole. They borrowed something from the inside of the craft. They borrowed it. So what the Army actually had an inventory, and they came to the father and said, did your kids take anything? And the father didn't know. They put it under the floorboards of the sheep herder shack, Steve, the floorboards. So they picked up so the sheep herder, who was kind of a very simple man, goes in to see Mr. Baca, and he says, I have to move out of here because something weird happened last night. This the paranormal around this is incredible. And so what happened is the sheep herder said 3 little jovencitos came through the wall looking for the tesoro, which is what the boys had called the souvenir, the tesoro. And of course, we got a problem, Houston, here, because Jacques has done an analysis, and on a superficial basis, it's a piece of aluminum alloy that's known called, I think he said it's aluminum, and siluminum. I forgot how he pronounced it. It's in the book. But why are the 3 little men coming through trying to get a piece that possibly the Army put there for the recovery? Because Jacques' theory is that the Army fastened, because there were no nails and no screws, this piece on this plaque that's on the inside of the craft, that the Army used it. Jose does not believe that. He believes because it was a rotating piece that it was part of the navigation system. Jacques' contemporaries that are looking at it, because this piece is in Silicon Valley, it's near Stanford, I mean, they're looking at it. They see some what's called hairs, some very strange looking, they're calling it hairs. They don't. Jaime Maussan saw those hairs also when he had a piece of the piece analyzed, and Jaime's idea is that it's carbon nanotubes that are in there. If that's true, if they're going to find other stuff, then that isn't an earthly piece, Steve. And those 3 little men that are coming through the wall aren't looking for some piece that the Army put. So it's very confusing, because when you get a story that's nuts and bolts and then all the weirdness comes in, like the paranormal, then we don't know where to go.
Right. Now, I also read in the book that Jacques Vallée, he kind of believes in, I guess, parallel universes, or actually he had mentioned in the book that he felt like somebody was watching us. I'd like you to expand on that, because I also believe that, if there's parallel universes, then maybe somebody from a future us might be going, hey, you guys are playing with atomic bombs, you might want to knock it off. Maybe they're sending a probe or something to, keep an eye on us, or I don't know. I'm just kind of interested in your thoughts on that.
Well, I'm interested in your thoughts on that.
Okay.
You're an outsider, and I might be a little off, but.
Okay, well, actually, my thoughts on that would be more, I had a friend of mine that was involved in the remote viewing program that the Army was involved with, and they talked with some of their viewers that were, proven that they can really do this, and they asked them what UFOs were, and they said that they're us from the future, and that there was a radiation event far in the future, and they're coming back to, I guess, correct it, or, I don't know, keep an eye on it. He wasn't real clear on that. So, I don't know, it just seems pretty odd that whenever there's a radiation event or something similar to that, then UFOs just happen to be showing up. I mean, we never saw anything until they dropped a bomb on Japan.
Okay, I'm going to have to come in here and we're going to take our bottom of the hour break here. Great conversation. You're listening to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno, and special guest co-host Steve Laplume and guest Paola Leopizzi Harris here on WOON 1240 AM, 99.5 FM in New England's beautiful Blackstone River Valley. We'll be right back.
The night is alive. Join us and take a walk on the weird side when you tune in to the Kingdom of Nye, hosted by Heather Wade, the finest in late night talk. Listen live free weeknights starting at 9 p.m. Pacific time at thekingdomofnye.com, talkstreamlive.com, and the Paranormal Radio app. Wanna take a ride?
Local and live at 99.5 FM.
And welcome back to Behind the Paranormal with Paul and Ben Eno on WOON Radio, AM and FM. And we are enjoying a great conversation here, led right now by Steve Laplume, one of our guest co-hosts, and Paola Leopizzi Harris, our guest, on the 1945, very little known Trinity, as we call it, Trinity UFO crash in New Mexico, and the children who were lucky or unlucky enough to witness it and to have an artifact. Now, I just wanted to ask one question that's coming in from listeners. Do we have a photograph of that artifact anywhere?
Yes. How can I? I mean, where do I can send it to you. Where can I? How can we do this on radio?
You could hold it up to the camera. Because there is a television feed that goes out and it gets recorded, so now we tell you, right? But yeah, you can if you can send it, we can. I don't know if we can put it up on the screen, or we can at least put it on the talking points page for the show.
Anything is possible, Father.
Yes,
with a little ingenuity.
Yes,
and some technical know-how.
Right. What he said.
Can I email it to you? The photos of it and the testing of it, can I email it to you, like, after we're done? And
yeah, okay, yeah, it might get complicated otherwise. And then we'll put it on the talking points. We'll make a talking points page on the website.
Maybe Facebook group. Or
put it on the Facebook page. Sure,
we'll figure it out.
Yeah, but we'll do it. But thank you. Yeah, so that would be great. So, Steve, continue if you would.
All right, sure. All right, so Paul,
can because this is a paranormal show, can I say some things about the paranormal that are not in the book? And Jacques wouldn't let me put them in there because he said the scientific community would go, berserk. But this is the truth. I mean, I've been working on it for 9 years, and you need to know, and I think Paul and his son need to know that there was paranormal stuff there, and I will tell you about it. It's not in the book, but, you got to know.
Yeah, by all means. Yeah, of course.
All right.
Expand.
Okay, so when Jose was 9 years old, he was riding his stallion, and he took me to a location where he saw a big ape, which he called the big monkey, jump over a fence, and we're obviously talking about Bigfoot. And he said, look at that fence over there. He said, this big ape jumped over that fence. And he said, my stallion reared up. He's not making this up. So, cause he's an ex-state trooper for California. I mean, the guy is very stable. He's been shot twice. One of the bullets is still in him. I mean, this is a real, solid guy. And the other thing, he and his wife died of kidney failure. He and his wife were driving in 1960s by that location, and his wife took a picture on a hill, and I drive by that hill on the way down to the crash site, and there was a Confederate soldier in the picture.
Oh, my.
So we got two problems here, Houston. We got Confederate soldier in the picture that's really there. Then we got a Bigfoot that jumps over a fence. in the location. That location was a sacred, religious place for the Apache. They did ceremonies there. So right there, that should tell you there's some kind of portal or something. Native American, ceremonies right there where it crashed. And then, and I'm not going to show you the picture for about 2 to 3 years. When I was doing the report on this in Laughlin, and all the people that worked on this case were standing for a portrait, a head appears behind me of a man that was not there.
I've seen that picture, and it's pretty disturbing.
It's disturbing. You've seen the picture, right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah.
I don't want to show it for at least 2 years until the book is out there, because it's going to get people off track, and Jacques would not like that. He wants the scientific community to get involved in UFOs, and he doesn't want to mess it up with a lot of different things, and I don't blame him. But this is a paranormal show, Paul, so I'm going to tell you that around something like this, the paranormal loves it and gets involved.
Very common, yes.
Yeah, you need to know this, because it's not something that I want, and it's not something that I anticipated. But that craft was in the same shape of Jumbo and Fat Boy. It was avocado shape.
The nicknames for the atomic bombs.
Yes, the casings.
Yeah.
The casings, yes. And then it was the same weight. And so the story is dead for 60 years until I come along. So did they know that Jacques and I were going to write a book about this? I couldn't do it alone because I was working on it for 5 years. Nobody was paying attention to anything I was doing. So then what? I mean, you're talking about people from the future, Steve? Like, did they know that whatever crashed there was a message to the world about using nuclear, and then go to your situation? The storage area.
At the height of the Cold War, when we're getting ready to nuke each other off the face of the earth. Yeah. And, it's interesting, the crafts that Peniston had drawn, and the one that's replicated out in the forest there right now, is very similar to what Jose described, with the bubble on top and the shape of it as well. So, again, the similarities just,
referring to the Rendlesham Forest case of 1980.
Correct. Yeah. And Paul, you had mentioned many times before, I've heard you talk about whenever there's a UFO incident, it seems Bigfoot sightings are very prevalent at the same time. Like there's some sort of a portal or a flap, I think you called it.
Yeah, the flap area, I'm thinking particularly of Pennsylvania, where we've seen UFOs and got them on video, and several of us have had Bigfoot encounters. There seemed to be a connection by means of the processes, we think, behind the paranormal, if you will, that
we have a title, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, that allow these things to manifest. Things that are not ordinarily associated with one another. UFO people never used to look at what are now known as crossover phenomena. As Paula described, the guys coming through the walls and this sort of thing would have been. And I was involved in early cases where that was just dismissed. And from the ghost type people, the UFO incidents were dismissed, and that was a serious mistake, I think, because these things are, as in other flap areas like the Mothman phenomenon, things of that kind, there were certainly connections. So, really relate to what Paul is saying here.
Mm-hmm. All right. So I know we're getting short on time here. So
we want to get to some listener questions, but go ahead and finish up, Steve. You're doing a terrific job.
Indeed.
Oh, yes, thanks. So we have a third witness, which is a female, and she was talking about how they took some of the debris from the crash and would actually use it as ornamental on their Christmas trees.
I love that.
I'm really interested in that.
Well, Jose had told me that, and that when the thing hit the tower, it spewed out what he called angel hair or spider web. So picture angel hair or spider web. And he and Remy went and gathered it all because it was lit up in purple, pink, and green. It was lit up. And they even tried to burn it. I mean, Jose is so ingenious. He took a torch and tried to burn. I mean, he was playing with it. And when they brought it home, it was so pretty. And they didn't have electricity in some of the rooms that it would be all lit up. So they decorated the Christmas trees and stuff. But their neighbors saw it on the windows because they put it on the windows too, and they came and gave it to the neighbors too. So the whole town has what looks like fiber optics from a UFO crash, which I think is an excellent opening for some Spielberg movie.
Absolutely.
Eating their Christmas trees with the stuff that comes out. And of course, we don't have that in 1945. There is a NASA scientist that has been down there with us, and he's blown away by it, by the idea. Now, if I could find some of those people that kept their Christmas tree decorations for 70 years, and I could get some of that, you imagine? Can you imagine? This would be like the biggest UFO story ever if I could get it. Steve, you're right. I'm glad you mentioned Sabrina because she came up on the last year when Jacques and I were down there and we were sitting outside, what's his name's trailer, Jose's trailer, and he goes, well, my niece was there at the time, and she was living with my father. Well, when I went to talk to the niece, she had details that Jose had no idea, because Jose at 17 went to the Korean War. So the niece, Sabrina, tells me, oh, yeah, we had long strips of aluminum that we used to bunch up, and then it went back to the regular shape. I said, long strips? She said, yeah, we didn't have slinkies or anything in those days, so we used to use them as toys. So it seems good old Faustino, the father, went out on his horse and found stuff he never told his son about, because she was living as a 7-year-old with the father and the grandmother there. You mean the father and the mother was her grandparents. And she also went to the crash site and saw it was scorched. She said the whole thing was scorched. Then she also said that the Army used to come in the back door for many years to check on the family. So, yeah, back door. And Tina used to say, why don't you come in the front door? So at that time, there was only the Army. There wasn't the Army Air Force. I mean, it was Army Air Force. It was not an Air Force. So can't go in Blue Book. So where did this thing go? Where did the craft go? And where is the file? Well, that's when Jacques gets into the idea that it's in the Atomic Energy Commission files, because this is too close to the atomic bomb 1 month after. That is the highest classification you can have. I'm sure Oppenheimer knew. I'm sure everybody, the Manhattan Project, they would have had to know. And it was 1 month later that they had a problem with UFOs, even though nobody knows what's really going on. So I'm glad, Steve, you asked me about if they're there, us from the future, or if it's a deliberate message. And that's why I think the case is important, because it is. The answer is absolutely.
Okay. Well, let's go to a question hopefully we'll have time for from our very, I think he's going to be a co-host here soon. He doesn't know it yet. Peter Shelley from Columbia, South America. And he has a couple of questions. Ben, if you would.
Sure thing. The pervasive Peter pens to us. There we go. I was trying to get some more alliterations in there. Paula, I watched 3 interviews with you and Jacques Vallée, including your channel and Paul's. I feel this is a very interesting and mysterious case. Question 1. There have been reports in the media where tests from White Sands have gone off course and crashed. For example, in May 1947, a German V-2 rocket was launched and veering off course crashed in Mexico. Why couldn't the 1945 crash have been something like that? Question mark. I suggest that the event could have been a test of a piloted V2 German rocket. Has happened historically in 1944 and dramatized in a movie called Operation Crossbow. This sequence depicts the actual German test where female pilot Hannah Reich, in a transparent dome on the top rear end of the V-1, is launched, experiences vibration and instability, and crashes. Note, by 1945, the Allies had recovered V-1s and were mass-produced copies for the planned Japanese invasion.
Well, that isn't a question. That is a long, a question is a question. Not a question and a solution. Okay? If you want me to answer a question, give me a question. Because if you read the book, and I'm hoping that you're asking me a question because you read the book, you'll know it was oval-shaped. They were not launching rockets. They were preparing the atomic bomb. It was the Manhattan Project. So we're dealing with the time when we're going, that is so secret that they had created Los Alamos. See, we have to look at history here. This isn't a V2 like NASA down in Florida. This is the atomic bomb being launched. And if it's an avocado-shaped craft, I don't know, how that is even a possibility. And if there's beings inside, and we do believe, someone as big and great and important as Jacques Vallée is not going to do a book on a V-shape, on a V8 rocket that went off course, okay? So, and there's 9 years of research. And not only that, 1945, we weren't doing that. We weren't sending up V8 rockets yet. They were, right now, you got to look at 1945, the year, and we had just shot off the atomic bomb, which went into other dimensions. So all you got is somebody is upset that we discovered nuclear because it goes into their territory. And I only say somebody because you notice in this interview that Steve and I did not name aliens. I did not say they came from Alpha Centauri. I did not even just go into that. I went into an occasion on a timeline that changed this planet. And then Steve asked also, does it affect something else? And of course, we are playing a chess game with nuclear energy where the only way to win is checkmate.
Okay. Well, if we...
that kind of answered question 2 a little bit. I say a little bit only because this refers mostly to the beings inside the craft, which I expect, Paula, your answer will probably be very similar. But you know what? We promised we'd read his questions, so we will. Could the occupants of the object have been human beings in aviator clothing?
I'm not even going to answer that.
Fair enough. So the third question is, you and Jacques have a difference in opinion on the nature of the artifact recovered from the object. I've seen images of it, and to me it looks completely man-made. Jacques says the holes in the metric system supports the theory that the main object was a German rocket. Please explain what you think and why.
Well, I think Paula made that clear. But.
Yeah, it's kind of what I said. He kind of answered all the other questions with that, so we'll just call this case closed, I suppose.
Can I?
Okay, and I will say that thank you, Paula, for the offer of sending the photos by email. We'll certainly post those so people can see them.
But yes, you may take a swing.
Yes.
May I encourage people to read the book before they answer? First of all, the only thing that was in the metric system was the artifact. The only thing, and it's the holes in the artifact that are in the metric system. So if the artifact, which is one little piece inside, is in the metric system, doesn't mean it's a German rocket. Okay? So what we have to do, first of all, I think, now Germany could be involved. I will go there. But not when you have 3 creatures that are interacting with children and the children would know if they were human. These things were, I mean, they described them as standing up fire ants because their eyes were teardropped and looked like fire ant eyes. I don't think that's human. But, you know, one of the things I want to encourage people to do, because I'm a teacher and I have a master's in education, is read the book. Because when you read the book, if I were to give you a test, I would have to ask you specific questions for the book. And I know that Steve is building a house right now, and his 24 hours, he's so busy in his 24 hours, like he's like super busy. And Steve, can I thank you for doing this? Because you read the book cover to cover, and I was so happy because I knew you were going to ask me questions from the book, which is easier for me to deal with than hypothetical, videos, because 95% of everybody gets their information off YouTube. They'll look at an interview, or they'll get somebody's rehashed, digested version of something, and I can't. It's very hard for me because we worked so hard on this book. We had something like 20 edits before it came out to make sure that, we corrected everything as much as we could. Now, Jacques did all the technical stuff, but I did only the interviews. But he is so grateful to me because he never got to meet Remy Baca because Remy Baca died. But thank you for reading the book. I really am grateful.
Well, the real question for Steve is, in building his house, is he using the metric system?
No, I'm using the standard system.
Oh, all right.
Here. But that does bring up a good point, though. If this is something from the future, then wouldn't it stand to reason they'd be using the metric system since the rest of the world is using it?
Napoleonic nonsense.
I mean, to be fair, it is incredibly accurate. I think.
Yeah, I know it.
Well, the equivalent of 1 millimeter is I think 2 or 1/32 or something. It's very hard to convert into the imperial system.
Yeah. Well, I was in Canada when they went to the metric system, and it wasn't pretty. But anyway, Paula, what is your next step in this case? Either for you or for you and Jacques, or you, Jacques, and Steve, for that matter.
Well, we have to go back there, obviously. We're taking, the NASA scientist is really interested in the description of the, okay, I'm going to go back again. We have long strips of aluminum metal that is memory metal. We have something that looks like fiber optics. We have artifacts from the case, and they're really, really interested in looking at that. And also, maybe we'll get somebody to come out of the woodwork. Maybe some of the people that had the stuff on the Christmas trees will read it. Maybe some of the people that were involved that are still alive after 75 years will come and say, I just heard from the son of the pilot that flew over. I just heard from the son. He just wrote. He said, I saw the book. My father did fly over that area. It was his last recovery, his last work, and I just heard from him. So that's the next step. And as far as Steve is a good friend, so I was having some hard time, just kept going back to New Mexico, and I couldn't talk about it because it was top secret. So Steve has been a good friend to try to support me to get this done.
Now, have you had any blowback from the government on this, or from anyone? You have men in black barreling out of your closets or anything? Because one would expect there would be some resistance to some of this. What's happened there, if anything?
Well, what happened was that when I found Sabrina, I had made an appointment for Jacques to question her in Los Angeles, and I was going to. And somebody called her and said, we're coming. Paola Harris is not coming anymore. We're going to take care of this. So she got a call like that and said, did you send somebody else? And I said, no, I didn't send anybody else. So I don't know obviously they're listening to the phone. And then when Clifford Stone died, and he gave me his archive, which is now in Jacques' house. He has 17 boxes of Clifford Stone's crash retrieval stuff. 3 men went to his door in black vans and said, Paola Harris sent us here to get the stuff. Of course, I didn't. What's his name? Clifford said, no, you're not going to get anything. She didn't send you here. So I don't know. Things like that have been happening, Paul. Of course, thank God I have Steve to talk to about this because it got really hairy. I didn't expect that. But his files are safely in Jacques' apartment, and there's 17 boxes of files. These things are historical. They're not entertainment. They're going to Rice University. People can go to a university to see all of this, including the piece, in the future.
Okay, good. Now, just to sum up, if you would, tell us about your website, where people can get the book. Trinity, the Best Kept Secret.
Okay, the book is going to be in 4 languages. Actually, it's in French, Spanish, Italian, and English. It's on Amazon. The Spanish is coming out in a month. And my website is www.paolaharris.com.
Excellent. And very good. Now, we're going to move to our announcements now because we're pretty much running out of time here, but we will, as I say, post the photos that Paula will graciously offer to send us, and people will be able to see those. So, you can hear our interview with both authors of Trinity, the Best Kept Secret, Paula and Dr. Valet, on the Behind the Paranormal Case Files YouTube channel. That's been up for about 2 weeks, and a lot of people are listening to it, and we invite you to do the same.
Indeed. And we'll be present at the Western Connecticut UFO Conference during the last week of October this year, and that'll be a mostly virtual event. It's kind of a hybrid event at the Danbury, Connecticut Public Library on Saturday, October 30th. More information to follow.
I'll be presenting a paranormal overview at the Arizona Dowsing Conference at the Little America Hotel in Flagstaff on Friday, October 8th. More information to come on that.
And good news on the website front. All regular recorded radio broadcasts of Behind the Paranormal from CBS Achieve Radio and here on WOON, AM and FM, have been restored in the archives at BehindTheParanormal.com. Also, fully restored are the Return to Rendlesham series from 2010 and 2011 on CBS Radio, and are all related shows, along with Achieve Radio monthly 2-hour specials from 2009. Still working on restoring other shows, podcasts, and interviews, but that will be done relatively soon.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Baby steps.
Our show now has its own app. It's rather bare bones, but it has connections with our most recent shows. And we plan to add features to that as we go once we figure out how to do it. It should be in the Apple and Google stores soon, and there's a link at BehindTheParanormal.com right on the first homepage there if you'd like to download the app now.
And you can also check out our books, along with those of our guest co-hosts, at our show website, BehindTheParanormal.com, where you can also find out more about the show, along with our many cases over the years, our public appearances, and how to book us, and some of our 900-plus free recorded shows now restored on the website, as mentioned earlier.
And I also should have mentioned that every time Paula is on, she has a real Providence, Rhode Island connections here, and we're always proud to have her, and her story is amazing. And if there are local folks who knew Paula or her dad, everybody, I'm sure, sends greetings.
I mean, Rhode Island is like one big, small town.
It is, yeah, very small. So we have a charity page at BehindTheParanormal.com. We encourage you to visit that. A number of charities who the people who run them, we know personally. We know it goes to the right place. So what's on the menu for next week, Ben?
Well, on the menu, we're cooking up some good stuff, and that's August 1st. We will present a tribute to the late, great Timothy Green Beckley, 60-year UFO legend, and a beloved guest co-host on our show. Joining us as a guest co-host will be Tim Schwartz, Tim Beckley's co-host for many years, who has now found a home with us. And there will be many great surprise callers, so be sure to tune in for that.
Yeah, Tim Schwartz is a really lovely person, real gentleman, and we're very proud to have added him to our stable of guest co-hosts.
I always got a kick out of it was Tim and Tim.
Tim and Tim, yes. How many Tims can fit on the head of a pin?
Mm.
Anyway, we leave you today with a thought from that darling 13th century Persian theologian Rumi. It's your road and yours alone. Others may walk it with you, but no one can walk it for you. I'm Paul Eno.
I'm Ben Eno, and we still have a couple of seconds here. So it's been a wonderful time, and we definitely encourage you to keep listening and keep your eye on the skies as our great
Keep
friend.
watching the skies. Yep,
Yes.
yep. Joe Ferrier.
So keep watching the skies and join us next time on our cosmic journey, and we'll see you next time on Behind the Paranormal.
Return to this radio frequency 167 hours from now for another edition of Behind the Paranormal.